Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kristin Laurel Luna, and today I wanted to talk about my writing journey. That is something I have not talked about on this channel. I've only ever spoken about the querying process, but not how I got to be in the writing world. So this is outlined but not scripted, so I'm just going to talk off the cuff. I might be rambly or unfocused, but we're just gonna see how this goes. So I started my first book, as many of us do, when I was in high school, middle school. I was a huge anime fan, and I came up with stories that were in the anime world but not anime fan fiction. I didn't use the characters that were already in the show. I made up characters and placed them in the world, and they had their own adventures. And that's important because I learned very early on not to rely on other people's work, but to come up with my own stories and my own characters. And it came easy and naturally to me later when I started actually writing books. So I wrote my first book when I was working at a candle factory. Basically, it was shipping and packing, and there wasn't a lot of work all the time. There would be hours out of the day where we were just standing around doing nothing. So instead of doing that, I decided to bring my notebook in and just write a story that I had had in my mind since high school, but I wanted it fully fleshed out. So I wrote my first book on my job, start to finish. I went about trying to find readers, and of course I used my sister and friends and co-workers to read my book, and I do not recommend you do that. You need to find beta readers or critique partners that are actually writers that are in your genre, because your friends and family, they're gonna lie to you. They don't know about the book business. They don't know about the ins and outs and what's wrong with your writing. They might just pick up that it's not good, but they don't know how to fix it. So it was a hot mess, and I ended up trying to find beta readers, but most of the groups, Facebook groups and forums that I went to, it was just dead. The people there that I did come across, they were not as ready to hear criticism of their work and try to get better, whereas that's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted harsh feedback. I wanted people to rip into my book so that I could fix it and find out what was wrong with it. But even if I did the compliment sandwich and I tried to, you know, encourage them to keep going, they would think that I was picking on them or that I was wrong. That I didn't understand their work, and it did not work. So I found that, and I don't recommend this, but I found that I hired a freelance editor, and that freelance editor helped me way more than any of the beta readers. The first one I hired, it wasn't for a lot of money. I think she was just getting started herself, but she was able to kind of give me some tips and tricks that I used. Then I hired Bookish Pixie, aka Ava J, aka Gabe. If you know them, they had a YouTube channel at the time, which is still going on, but I decided to hire them as my freelance editor, and they were great. They helped me way more than the first editor, and I was able to improve my craft. I was able to see what was wrong with the book and how to fix it. I enjoyed having honest feedback about my work, and even when I tried to get other beta readers, you know, and critique partners who were trying to get traditionally published like I was at the time, I tried to give them help as well to learn what I've learned, what I paid for from the freelance editor. I gave them that knowledge for free, but it was the same thing that, oh, you don't understand my work, oh, you're just being mean. If I have to, oh, this was my favorite. If I have to revise the novel, I'm never going to finish it. And it's like, that's what you're supposed to do. Oh my God. Anyway, so overall, with this, my first book, I hired 3 freelance editors, and I revised and I queried, and I got rejections, and then I revised and I queried again, and then I got rejections, and then I revised and I queried. And I did this cycle, this spin cycle, for 5 years with this book. And I know writers are like, oh, yeah. 5 years I wasted querying and revising in this never-ending cycle, because I was so focused on this book, and it's like, this is my only book. This is the only book I'm ever going to write. You know, it's so good. If someone would just read it, then they would know how good it was. So I queried a literary agent, and she responded not with a rejection, but with a revise and resubmit. And basically she said it was like she got my novel, but there were some things that I needed to fix on it, and she said that I was free to resubmit to her. So I did that, and she asked me for a full. And guys, I got the email for the full request while I was at work, and I fell to my knees and I just sobbed. And we had gotten a new employee at the time, and she did not know what was going on, and they thought that I had gotten bad news, but it was the first step, the first positive step on my writing journey, where I felt seen, where I felt like this was my chance. I was finally going to get a literary agent, and that was the first gate, that was the first hurdle, and I was going to be published. And I stalked her Twitter. I don't recommend you do this, but I don't recommend you do this with any agent. Try to be practical about it, because I stalked. I had dreams. I was like, she posted something, and the background was like very similar to something that was in my book, and she said that she had just read a wonderful book from the slush pile. And as practical as I am, I'm like, she's not talking about me. She's probably talking about somebody else, but what if, what if she was talking about me? What if she was talking about my book? And that's the post. And I'm like, no, she's not talking about me. It's not me. But what if it is, though? So I got an email, and it was a rejection. I got rejected on a full, and I cried. This time, not in happiness and joy, but for sadness. I cried. I couldn't go to work the next day. I took the day off, and I was just in a depressed bubble, because I felt like this person who I thought got me, who understood, didn't read the full novel, or read most of it. She read more than what I was giving to other agents for your query and submission, and she didn't like it. So I shelved the book. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, why? You were so close, baby. Maybe if you had kept going. But to be honest, it had been 5 years, and I had gone through that whole spiral circle thing of, querying, revising. And I just felt like that it was not going to happen. It was not going to happen with that book, and I need to shelve it. And, it was like, I hate to get dramatic, but I guess if you're not a writer, you don't really understand this, but it's like, you mourn, and it's grief, and not on the same level as a death in the family, but it was your baby. It's something you worked hard, you poured your creative energy into, your hard work, and you sent it out there with the hopes of being read, getting published and having a career, and this was your dream, and it wasn't going to happen. So yeah, it took me a year. I could not write. I couldn't do anything in relation to writing. I couldn't write. I couldn't listen to YouTube videos, writing prompt YouTube. I couldn't listen to writing YouTube videos and writing vlogs, all the stuff that gave me joy. I didn't want to know about the publishing industry. I just kind of closed. I shut down. And every time I felt like, oh, let me just start something new, I swear to God, I get PTSD and I start shaking, and it was just grief and sadness all over again. And it took a year for me to get out of that. And that's when I wrote my second book. My second book is the one that I've mentioned on this channel before. It's called We Don't Need Two. And I'm currently querying it now. I have not reached my query 60. I'm only querying 60 agents, which is way more than the first time, my first book. I only queried 25 agents, and people are going to be like, oh, that's too low. You really should have kept going. But like I said, it was 5 years, and it was, yeah. So I've gotten rejections, no requests for full, for my second novel, We Don't Need Two. But backing up. So when I decided to write my second book, it wasn't a complete restart. I basically decided that my voice, my writing, it didn't resonate with young adult. And I forgot to mention that. My first book was young adult. One, the young adult industry was very saturated when I started writing. And I felt like maybe my writing voice, the way I write, is more geared to adults. And the adult fantasy is not as saturated as young adult. So maybe I would stand a chance if I just upgraded, I guess, to adult fantasy. So instead of doing a restart, I basically pulled ideas from my young adult novel and I cannibalized it and revamped it for an adult audience. So it's not the same book as my young adult, but it has a lot of the same characters and it has a lot of the same themes as my young adult. And doing this helped me write the novel, I guess. So knowing that I wasn't starting fresh with a whole new idea, that I had been in this world before and I knew all the ins and outs, I knew, the language and how I wanted the world, my fantasy world, to be. So it was easy to world build in my second novel. So I leaned more into the psychological aspects, the thriller, the horror, which is what I consider dark fantasy. It has more of a horror element to it. And then I finally found my niche, that's what I'm good at. I am good at dark fantasy. I'm good at the shades of gray. It's good versus evil, and that's what I love to do. And without without having to limit myself with YA, because you want to take it far but not too far in YA, I can actually go, as far as I want to in an adult novel, because it's an adult novel. So I really enjoyed writing my second book. It was way better than my YA novel, and I have not had the courage to go back and reread my YA novel yet. But I'm curious to do that one day and kind of see like how far I've come as a writer. But yeah, I haven't had the courage to do that yet. But I know I have improved way more. I learned a whole lot of writing this novel, and yeah, so I am currently writing my third novel, which is, I've already said, We Don't Need Dragons. And it's still in the same world, but it doesn't have the same characters. But yeah, it's a standalone, and it could go before or after the We Don't Need To, my second book. So next year I should finish it, and I'm hoping to query it in the fall, and I will keep you guys updated on that. But right now it doesn't look like We Don't Need To is going to find a literary agent, but that's okay because I have another chance. I've said this before, I'm only going to query 3 books to literary agents. So this is my We Don't Need Dragons is my 3rd book and my final book querying literary agents. If that book does not find a home, or does not get traditionally published, then I will go the indie route and publish We Don't Need To and We Don't Need Dragons. So you will get to read these books. I just didn't want to go the indie route, as I've mentioned before on this channel, because that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of, you know, wearing a lot of hats. And at the time when I started my writing journey and I chose traditional publishing, I didn't know much about marketing or promotion or social media and all that stuff. So I'm gradually building up my social media following, and I'm gradually learning promotion and marketing, so that if it comes to that, I will be in a better position to get my books out there and reach my readers. But yeah, so I currently reached my goal post. I have goals, mini goals when I'm writing a novel, but there's like goal posts. And my first goal post was 10K. So I reached 10K with We Don't Need Dragons just the other day. So I'm very happy about that. My next goal post will be 20K, and then it's 60K, and then 90 and 100. I'm really excited about We Don't Need Dragons because it's very different from what I normally write. I'm still on my writing journey. I still haven't, I guess, mastered the querying. I guess when you're querying, you hope that 2 or 3 agents will ask for a full, and then you hope that 1 or 2 of those agents will want to represent you. That way you have choices, even if it's just 1. But even if it's just 1, that's good. But to have nobody wanting to read your novel it does feed into my imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome, in case you don't know, is when you feel like you're not good enough. And I know all writers feel this, even Stephen King at some point. But yeah, when you don't have anyone in your corner, basically, I'm alone, you know. I don't have beta readers, as I mentioned before, or critique partners, or a literary agent or publishing house to back me. You just feel very much alone, and you feel adrift. And if you are writing and you are querying right now, you're not alone. These feelings are not just you, and I hope that this video helps you see that we're all trying, we're all struggling out here, and you just got to keep going, basically. You just got to keep going. If this is your dream, you got to keep going. And I love my books. I love my writing. I don't think I'm the best writer, but I'm willing to learn and practice. I'm always challenging myself to be better, to not just rest, and to keep going. And I think hopefully one day, either traditional or indie, I will have my physical book in my hand, and you guys will get to read it, and I can finally share my stories instead of keeping them in my head and on paper. But yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about today. If you're on a writing journey, you're writing either for indie or traditional publishing, leave a comment below about any ups and downs you faced, and how do you push yourself? How do you keep going? It'll help somebody. Subscribe if you haven't, if you enjoy my videos, and give it a thumbs up. This really helps the algorithm. Share it if you know somebody who is writing. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.